Hey there, low-code makers. I am about to give ChatGPT a run with Power Platform in the low-code world. Can it help me with Canvas apps, creating PowerFx formulas for me? Can it offer me anything to help with model-driven apps? And Power Automate odata expressions, troubleshooting, how does it compare with doing a Google search? All that plus some fun along the way. ChatGPT and low-code, is it worth it? Let's find out. Round one, let's give this a try with Canvas apps. I've got a gallery here called Browse Gallery 1. This is connected to a SharePoint list of items, and each item has a priority in it, high, medium, low, and I want to apply colors to that to make it easier to read. But I don't know how to do that. So let's see if ChatGPT can help me with my PowerFx formula. Now this is my starting point here, which is to ask, write me a PowerApps formula. You'll see I've given it the name of my gallery because I want it to actually use that in the formula, and I've just given it the names of some colors. And this looks promising. Now, if you're experienced, you will spot along the way that this isn't quite right, spoiler alert, but we're going to work through it and refine how we use this tool. So it's giving me that formula in this lovely little code snippet piece. Looks very promising, doesn't it? So I'm going to say copy code and take that back into my Canvas app. Now I'm wearing my complete beginner's hat here. Where do I put it? Now I'm confused. So let's see if ChatGPT can give me a hand with that, because I don't know where I'm going to put this piece of code that I've just copied. So back in here, where do I put the formula? Now you'll see here that I'm asking a question. I'm not going back and saying in Canvas apps, so it's got the context of what I've asked it in the past. So it's going to tell me to put it in select the text field in the Browse 1 gallery in the right side properties panel, find the color property. Okay, so this is nice step-by-step instructions. Let's go back into the Canvas app and find that. So I'm going to go across into the properties on the right-hand side to find the color formula. Okay, warning one here. It only knows information up till 18 months to a year or so ago. It's not up with all of the latest features. So as the interface has changed, it's not going to be completely accurate. So there's your first warning. I do, however, know that there's a color property up here, and that's where I'm going to put it in. So there's a little bit of sort of more up-to-date human knowledge going in on that one. We'll paste that in, and okay, I've got an error. So let's go and have a look at this. I can see that there are 3 formulas affected, incompatible types for comparison. So we can't evaluate your formula. So this is where, how is the Power Apps help comparing to what ChatGPT could do for me here? Can ChatGPT give me a better explanation of what this error is and how to fix it? Let's give it a try, shall we? Back in here, I'm getting an error, so just copying that error in there, again, in the context of the conversation. So it's explaining it to me here. To fix the error, we need to extract the text value of the priority field. So again, I wouldn't really know what that means, but aha, look how this formula has changed now. Priority dot value. So even though this is spitting something out, and yeah, it's still wrong, it's helping me. And if I'm using this as a learning tool as well, I think if you're using this as a blind copy paste, this might be a bit tedious. But the idea here that if I'm working with something like that, that the dot value at the end, because it's a list of choices in SharePoint, it could have taught me that. So this is a good tool for learning how to use PowerFx as well as it giving you the answer. And now there's no errors, but it's not working. The colors haven't changed. I'm clicking here to see if I've got the RGBA colors wrong or something, but I can see that I'm getting the colors that I desired in there, so it's definitely not that. So now what? I don't have an error that I can search on. I have a valid formula that's just wrong, ineffective. So let's give ChatGPT another chance at this and see what we can do. I'm just going to tell it the colors aren't working. How can it help me here? So it's going to offer a few different suggestions here. Make sure that the color property is set. I've definitely done that. Ensure the priority field contains the right values. Yes, done that too. If it's coming from a data source, make sure the data source is properly connected. Yes, I've done that. It's my SharePoint list. If you have any other properties, all right, so here we go. Please provide more information. So I've just started by saying, please write me a formula for this instead of something else. So now I'm telling it that it's coming from a SharePoint list, and we'll see what it is. So now it's giving me something with inverted commas in the property field. And it's going to tell me that it's doing that because sometimes the SharePoint list will have 2 words in the name. And yes, it's still wrong. We are going to get to the answer here. But again, there are some things here that I'm learning along the way, both about how to use ChatGPT and how it's teaching me about PowerFx. Let's give this one a go. I'll go back in here, paste it in again, and what's going to happen now? Oh, good, no error and still no colour. At this point, I've got to say I was largely unimpressed with the whole thing. And something I've been hearing is it's all in the way you ask the question. So I'm just going to try this a completely different way. Instead of this, write me a formula, I'm going to give it something different as a starting point because I've seen that it's more helpful if it understands what the data source is. So I can actually give it a lot more context. Instead of just straight out write me a formula, I'm going to tell it the full context of what I'm doing and explain better what I'm looking for. So this idea of natural language, this is where it's very different from doing a Google search for something where you're really just hitting keywords. This is actually understanding what you're typing in a different way. So this time I'm giving it, I'm building a Power App on a SharePoint list. There's a priority column that has the values high, normal, and low. I'm showing them in a browse gallery and I want to see them in different colors. I'm not even saying write me a PowerFx formula anymore. I think that was a different way of thinking of how I approached this problem to start with. So let's clear the slate here and pretend I've started here, and let's see what it's going to give me as an answer this time round, approaching the question in quite a different way. Aha! If you know, you know, right? This is better. So we're getting this item this time instead of the selected formula. That is looking a whole lot better. Yes, it's still wrong, but we're getting closer. So you can see how we would be working with this. Again, I probably needed to understand that the value, that dot value, but I've learnt that from having watched along. So let's paste this one in. I'm going to get error again. We'll go in here to the app checker. Let's have a look at the formulas. And there is that same error I had the first time round. Now, because I'm pretending I've started again with this new way of asking the question, I'm going to give it a chance to solve the problem for me, and let's see if we can get it right on the final go here. So we'll go back into ChatGPT, we'll ask it about that error again. Let's go in here again with, it looks like the priority field is a record type and not a text type, so it's giving me the same thing. And now, friends, we're looking good. So if I'd started with the right type of question and giving it that right type of information, I would have got to this answer a whole lot quicker. I do feel like on balance, this is a good tool for teaching me more about PowerFx rather than randomly searching formulas and trying to understand, especially if you're coming from low code, the syntax and the parameters and so on, that it can give me that and give me an explanation of why and help me troubleshoot. I reckon I would learn quite a lot by learning and extending my skills in PowerFx. Now, what about other error issues here? So in here, I've got formulas. I've got 12 errors for this. There's something wrong with this formula, but this looks scary, right? I've got invalid argument, the function. This looks like it's a complicated error and I cannot figure it out from all of those error things. If I click through, I'm going to be there for ages. Again, beginner, don't know what's what. Can you fix this error for me? And I'm just giving it the formula. So this is a much more basic question. And it is telling me that the search function is not being used properly. Here's a corrected version of the formula. So this one is just giving it to me, not in that little code snippet bit, but I can just do a straight copy paste in here. And you'll see, if you know this formula, that it is actually correcting it. There was a piece missing, a piece of dot notation missing in there in the text search box. So it's given me that and corrected the text search box control because it needed to find the value of the text in that. So lots of explanation again. It does give you quite a lot. You will have seen in my intro, you can ask for it to be made more simple if you like. But for now, let's just grab that and pop it in here. Oh, look at that. Look at all those errors just disappear. How great is that? I can't tell you how many times I've had people, beginners, working on this and just getting stuck with actually what was one quite simple error in my formula, a dot text missing, and it throws all these red marks and it throws 12 errors and people freak out. I think that is a really top use of ChatGPT for working with Canvas apps. All right, now we're going to work on refining a formula. So I want to do something different with the formula this time. What I want to do is sort this so that we've got things in order by first name. So I've asked it to rewrite the formula for me so that we can sort by first name, and not quite right. It's telling me now that the column first name doesn't exist. Now this is where we have to understand our own data source a bit more. It's capitalized it, which means it won't work. I probably could have gone back and forth on ChatGPT on that. I don't know. I think there's this overlay, right, of what I know and what it knows. It's helped me craft the formula. It's done that hard work for me, but I still need to tweak it there and get the right capitalization in. Now, I've ended up with a whole lot of things in that gallery that don't have first names, which is annoying. So let's refine the formula again, change it again so that any rows that don't have a first name are filtered out. So this is now going to add another column in here. I love this sort of like I've written a basic formula and I want to extend it into something else. Again, I think that's a really, really strong use case for how we might be able to use this tech in low code building. And there we go, looking good. Now let's give it a test against, in Power Apps in Canvas apps, there's a thing called Power Apps Ideas, which is supposed to help you with formatting. Now this actually does use the same technology, ChatGPT, underneath. This is really interesting, right? Because the Microsoft teams have been working on bringing this into the app, and that's lovely. But now we have this tool available that I think honestly has pretty much surpassed what's going on here. The idea here is that this is using sort of a programming by example. We can put in a format of what's going on, and it's given me an answer that, again, I'm looking at that as a low code beginner person, and that looks kind of confusing. Let's see how ChatGPT does with this. So I'm going to take that formula, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to ask it to do that, change it so that it formats as last name, comma, first name, and here it is. Let's see if it gets the capitalization right this time. Oh, still not, right? So I've put it in as last name, first name with a lowercase, so you've got to watch that. It's come through. As I played with this a bit more, I did get some examples that were spitting out with the lowercase in there. So I don't know if it's picking that up or whether I've asked the question in a different way to get that. So once again, I just need to go in and change this. This is a much simpler formula, and honestly how I would do it relative to what Power Apps Ideas was suggesting. So yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. I think we're going to be leaning on this a little bit more perhaps than the inbuilt AI-based suggestions. Round 1, Canvas apps. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I will actually be using that, and I will be learning more about how to ask questions and refine my questions in the right way instead of the way I do it with Google searching. All right, round 2, model-driven apps. Now, I was a bit stuck here. How can it help me with a model-driven app? It can't kind of build it for me, can't get it to do any formulas or anything like that really. And then I thought, when I made my big model-driven apps tutorial, quite a few people were asking me about the thought process behind how did I design that data model for asset management. So I thought, here we go, let's give that a test and see how it goes if I ask it to create a data model for an asset management app. So I'm going completely technology agnostic here. I haven't told it anything about model-driven apps or anything. I've just gone, here's what I want to do. This is really impressive. Look at this. Assets. Yeah, that's pretty much what I did. Locations, I didn't have physical locations in my app, but honestly, that's a good idea. Departments, I did something like that. Vendors, manufacturers, users. Honestly, there's quite a lot here that's pretty similar to how I did it, and a couple of extra ideas if I were building that out in a real world. Tell me more about the data relationships. So I'm coming perhaps from a background where I haven't worked with databases before, and it's telling me there are relationships in the data and I don't understand them. Nice explanation of one-to-many and many-to-one. How do I create them in Microsoft Dataverse? Here we go. In the Power Apps platform, open the solution. Yes. In the Solution Explorer, navigate to the table, click on New Relationship. Click. This is pretty good. Now, again, there are some things in here that are not quite right, but this is getting you quite far with how to build the model-driven app. Give me the full data model for the asset table. So here are all the different field types. Again, this part, super good. All of these different things that it's giving me, can you give it to me for Microsoft Dataverse? So here we go, primary key unique identifier. It actually pre-creates that for you, so you might get a bit stuck there. Single line of text, date and time, lookup, multi-line text, currency. Option set is now called choices, so again with the slightly dated terminology, but realistically, if you were coming building a model-driven app for the first time and you needed help with what's that thought process for a data model, I reckon this is a tool that you can use. You'll see here I've taken it a step further to go, what other ideas are there? What could I do with Power Platform in my organization? A bit of an ideation session here with ChatGPT. And again, I can build forms, I can automate business processes. There's a fair bit in here that's a bit generic Power Platform language, but create a custom inventory map. So again, let's get more specific here. I run a business that hires out office space. We have 10 different rooms. What can I do? Create a room booking app. Good idea. Create a room management app. Another good idea. Customer map. Look at how good this is in ideas of what you can do. So if you've got those licenses and you're not getting the most out of them, ChatGPT is your friend. So round 2, model-driven apps. I'm surprisingly impressed by how good it is at helping with that thought process of putting together a data model, explaining some of those concepts, helping you figure out what all of those columns should be and what data types they are. I'm going to give that a thumbs up. I'm going to keep playing with that. Round 3, Power Automate. Now, I am more of a genuine beginner here, and this was a real thing that I was working on, and I have a flow that failed. We've all been there, right? My error details, action, create a task failed. Great, that's not really giving me anything else. Click through into it and I can find the specific error message here, which is something about a URL was not parsed. I'm not using a URL. I really genuinely have no idea except that I've done wrong and it did not create my task. So hello ChatGPT, can you help me with this? How do I fix this Power Automate Cloudflow error? And it's going to give me some suggestions here, none of which are helpful at all. Verify that the URL being used is correct. I'm not using a URL. Make sure I have the proper permissions. Right, so that's hopeless. Here's what I normally do to solve this problem. I paste the error message into Google, haven't even said Power Automate or anything, it's just in there. And look at that, first search result, community. Thank you, community. And I can scroll down here and find this wonderful suggestion straight away that is telling me that I need to, specifically for that Dataverse connector, for that adding a new row, I need to add that in, and now I can go back and do that. So Google 1, ChatGPT 0, I thought I'd give it another try because of course I got another error message here in an OData formula where I'm trying to work with comparing something. So I've popped that in, help me solve this, and it's telling me that the binary operator, so I've got an EQ in the middle of my formula here, is trying to compare two different things that are different. Okay, good. What do I do about that? So again, giving me some more suggestions. I'm trying to compare this entity called participation with a GUID. Well, that's okay because it's a lookup and I am trying to compare it with the lookup value. So it's telling me I'm getting it wrong. So clearly one of those is in the wrong format and I still don't really understand why. This is something that's useful. Explain it to me like I'm a beginner. You might have seen in my opening reel, I had explain it to me like I'm a Labrador. You can have a bit of fun like that. That's an expression one of my colleagues loves to use to say, dumb it down for me. So you can actually sort of assume the role of a different persona and see what it comes up with to give you a more simple explanation. I like this second explanation much more. I'm comparing apples to oranges. Cliche, but we all get what that means. I think that's a whole lot easier. So it's telling me I need to go back and check what I'm trying to compare and make sure I'm correcting using the correct types of data that are in there. All right, it also suggests reaching out to the Microsoft team for help, but anyway. So I'm going to go in here and I'm still not getting it. I still think I'm doing the right thing. So now I'm just going to try a different approach here, which is where I started with the Canvas apps. Help me write the formula. So now it's going to give me some OData filter expressions here in these nice little code boxes. Again, I've asked a generic question, I'm getting a generic answer. It's giving me a bit of education around how to create OData filters. But already I'm looking at this and going, that's kind of not how it looks with the Dataverse and in, like, obviously this is to use anywhere in a different context, but I don't have to put the $filter at the start. So already I'm a little bit, I suppose that's the box in Power Automate and I'm just taking it from account ID. Aha, but I am noticing that it's using underscore value and I didn't do that. So that's the next thing to try because that's something that I might have missed. So I need to compare the value of it with the value of the other one. And I'm feeling confident now. Here we go. I'm going to save and test. No, still another error. All right, so could not find a property named that. I definitely have the right schema name. I've been really careful with that. So let's give ChatGPT another shot here and see if it can help me find this more particular thing. So I'm giving it the specific error with the specific table references in here. It's telling me that it can't find that. All right, now we're stating the obvious, thanks. Seems I'm trying to filter based on a lookup field. Yes, exactly that, but the lookup field name is incorrect. Except that it's not. I've triple checked and double checked and every checking that that is the right name, so that's definitely not the problem. I should check the name of the lookup field, and it's telling me I'm filtering on participation instead of qualification. That's wrong. This is potentially really confusing. That could have led me right down the wrong garden path because I actually have got it pretty close to right. So I'm going back to my old friend Google here, and I'm going to put this in here again using a lookup in Google, and there we go, straight up SharePoint list. Shane Young, love your work, but I'm not working with a SharePoint list here, so we're going to qualify the search there for Dataverse, and there we go, filtering a Dataverse lookup column. So that's looking promising. That's what I want. And again, where's it going to take me? Yay, community! Woo-hoo! So what am I going to do here? We'll scroll down here and see what it's got. I can see already this is a bit of a legacy connector, but I'm recognizing that straight off from the screenshot. And if I scroll down a little bit further and see what else it's going to tell me here, here we go. A lovely person has solved this. Ah, look at that. There's an underscore at the front. That's really specific and really, frankly, kind of unintuitive if you don't do this all the time. I don't know that ChatGPT would ever have got me there, but I can go back and put that in there. Now, what I've done here is actually copied the exact query I gave Google to compare what I get in ChatGPT with the same query and the same answer. It's telling me to append the underscore value, so that was actually a better answer to the previous question. It's still not giving me that initial underscore that I have to put right at the start for some reason. So I think this is one of these things where it got me pretty close this time. And again, if I'd asked the question in the right way, but that value of still being able to search for things and find screenshots that people have done in the community for those very, very specific things. So let's try again with my underscore at the start. I'm going to click save and run another test. And here we go. Fingers crossed what's going to happen this time. Have I nailed it? Green. I love those little green ticks when I'm working in Power Automate. Come on. Yes! All right. I think Google wins the Power Automate section, however. Or actually, the community wins, let's face it. One final test here. It tells us that it is limited in its knowledge after 2021 and it doesn't have access to the internet. So what's the latest in Power Apps? It is actually explicitly calling out that it's only got features up to 2021 that's constantly evolving, so at least it is telling you that, which is good, rather than having you believe it's all real. Frankly, this is like a little trip down memory lane from more than a year ago and how far we've come. Component framework, UI flows, Power Apps portals, there's a whole lot of stuff in there that is definitely not new anymore. So just be really careful about the currency of information. We've seen that both with the specific formulas and features as well as this. Now, it's suggesting you can go to the Microsoft official website for more information, but you know I've got you covered and where you can go for the latest and greatest. Make sure you check out what's happening in Wave 1 2023. Let me know in the comments here if you think that ChatGPT is something that you will use for low code, your successes, failures, learnings along the way, and if you're interested in more content on this. As always, thanks for watching.